Good morning. I'm going to pass over to Tracy first for election of chair.
Good morning. Right, can we have nominations for chair, please?
I'm happy to nominate Councillor Strudwick.
Happy to second.
Perfect, thank you. Welcome everyone to this Licensing Subcommittee hearing. I'm Councillor Emily Strudwick and Chair of the Licensing Committee. Housekeeping, safety information. If the continuous fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the room and public gallery by the stairwells. Do not attempt to use the lifts. Assemble by Queen Victoria's statue in Guildhall Square. To comply with the Guildhall Trust Fire Marshal regulations, anyone who signed in at the Guildhall reception desk should sign out when leaving the building. Everyone speaking via a microphone will be on camera, including those making deputations. The public seating area is not in view of the cameras used to webcast this meeting. Members of the press and public are permitted to record the meeting on the understanding that it neither disrupts the meeting nor records those stating explicitly that they do not wish to be recorded. Please can everyone speaking use the microphones and remember to switch them off when they have finished. Just in case nobody's been to a subcommittee before, just to explain, I'm going to go around and do introductions and then I'll do a rundown of how it's going to go. So if I go to my left.
Councillor Raymond Dent, Cotton Water.
Tracy Blair, Legal Advisor.
Jane Didino, Local Democracy Officer.
Good morning, Derek Stone, Principal Licensing Officer.
Good morning, Chris Mitchener. I'm the licensing advocate on behalf of my client.
Good morning, Srimad Navanidhan is my name.
Yes.
Wonderful. And I'm Councillor Madrick. I'm standing in for Councillor Ashmore, who I believe has given his apologies.
Thank you. So just a rundown in case you haven't got how today's going to go. We're going to go to Derek first and then you'll have your opportunity to ask any questions and so will we. And then it will go to you to do your case. And then I know you said you don't want to, but if you do, you can then. And then we'll go back up to summing up and then we'll go into closed session. Okay. Derek, can I pass over to you, please?
Yes, good morning, members. So we're here today to consider an application for the grant of a new premises licence at 11 to 13 Albert Road, Southsea. The activity or the licensing activities that have been requested are the alcohol sales from Sunday to Thursday, 7 o'clock in the morning until 23:59 hours, and then on a Friday and Saturday from 7 o'clock until 2300 hours. There's also a request for late night refreshment on the Sunday to Thursday days between 2300 hours and 23:59. And the hours of opening and closing being Sunday to Thursday, 7 o'clock to 23:59, and closing earlier on a Friday and Saturday, closing at 11 o'clock. The applicant has detailed in the operating schedule the steps intended to support and promote the licensing objectives, and these can be found in the redacted application form attached to Appendix A in your bundle. You also have a plan of the premises which are attached to Appendix B. The provisions relating to the grant of a premises licence are contained within Part 3 of the Licensing Act of 2003 and associated statutory regulations. Public notice was given by way of press notice, a premises notice, and also local ward councillors were notified of the application. So therefore there are no grounds for the committee to reject the application for non-compliance with the prescribed advertising requirements.
I'm really sorry, we didn't do any declaration of interest. Can we just do that quickly?
Members, any declarations? No.
Well, I have loads now. You say. No interest at all, no.
Sorry, Tracy.
Thank you, Tracy. So if you don't know the actual premises of 11 and 13 Albert Road, it was Garbo's Hair Salon, which has traded at that location for many years. It's now in the process of being converted into a new convenience store, and it will be operated by an experienced retailer, and you'll hear the history of his experience in this retail trade. He's currently operating 3 other similar convenience stores in the city. All these stores are licensed for off sales with similar times as applied for in this application. Members, there are no representations from any responsible authority, and the application has agreed to a number of conditions with the police. So there was a pre-meeting before the application, or once the application had been submitted, and agreement has been reached where these conditions, should you grant the licence today, these will automatically be added to the conditions on the premises licence. These include, as you'd expect, CCTV, comprehensive training of staff, Challenge 25, refusal logs, no sales of beer, ciders or lager of 6.5% and over. That's to avoid the street drinking and the clamour for very strong alcohol. Also, written or computerised records shall be made of any incident of crime or disorder taking place on the premises. Representations have been received from 5 local residents. Initially, several were rejected by us as the objections were based purely on the number of retail shops in this location. And as you know, members, need is not a matter that can be taken into consideration when considering a premises licence application. I've put in my report paragraph 8.1 of our licensing policy and also 14.19 of the revised guidance under the 182 Licensing Act, which states there can be confusion about the difference between the need for premises and the cumulative impact of premises on the licensing objectives, for example, on crime and disorder. Need concerns the commercial demand for another pub or restaurant or shop and is a matter for the planning authority and for the market. This is not a matter for a licensing authority in discharging its licensing functions or its statement of licensing policy, and I'm sure Tracy can assist you on that if you need further guidance. Copies of the redacted representations received are attached at Appendix C. And when determining the application, members, the committee must have regard to the promotion of the licensing objectives, which are the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. You also have to have regard to your licensing, adopted statement of licensing policy, judgments of the High Court, the current statutory guidance issued by the Home Secretary under Section 182, and the representations including supporting information presented by all parties, and also the human rights of all parties concerned to ensure both a fair and balanced hearing and to consider any public sector equality duty. Members, I mentioned the fact that the police have agreed conditions. As you know, the police are the lead authority for crime and disorder, and they're satisfied that the conditions, if you're satisfied, would be sufficient for these premises to be managed effectively. When an application to grant a premises licence has been made, and where relevant representations have been made, you as a licensing authority have to consider them, unless all parties agree that hearing is unnecessary. And after having regard to the representations, the committee may take such steps as it considers appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives, which are to either grant, as applied for, you could exclude from the licence any licensable activities, you could refuse to specify a person as a premises supervisor, or you can reject the application. I don't think I need to say any more, members, but if I can assist you during the proceedings, obviously I'm here to help. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Councillor Madrick.
Thank you, Chair. Just a point of clarification, I'm sure this is not an issue. On page 19 of the report, obviously the opening hours say until 2400 hours, which obviously is 000, but the your introduction report stated 23:59. I'm sure it's only a minute, but is that a clerical error, or is it midnight they're applying to, or 1 minute to midnight? You know me, I like to be precise.
Just 1 second, I'll look at the actual application.
The application says 24.
But then that would be 20. Sorry, there isn't technically a 24-hour
Correct,
full
yeah,
stop. So I refer to it as 23:59, but that it reads midnight. We would certainly go in there at 30 seconds after 23:59 and say you're in breach of your licence.
You know what I'm like, Derek. You know what I'm like.
No problems.
Just a point of clarification, I'm trained to be a solicitor, so I pick up these things sometimes. On the other 3 premises the licence holder has, have we had any concernable problems at any of those 3 or any reasons to pull for review before?
No, none whatsoever.
Wonderful. And I assume by the fact that we haven't got responsible authorities here, including the police or environmental health, that we are satisfied that they are content, that they've got no objections to this application?
That is correct, yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. No further questions, Chair.
Just taking the questions out of my thing, just tick them off. I've just got one point of clarification. I know you said we were all transparent about when they applied for the licence, but on page 35, there was a mention of lack of transparency in the application, saying there is no record of it on the Portsmouth licensing portal. Could you just explain that for me?
I can't explain it. I can only say that probably when they first saw the notice in the window, by the time they'd gone onto our portal, it wasn't showing at that stage, but it certainly has been advertised correctly.
Thank you.
Could it also be possible, Derek, that they might have clicked on the wrong tab, because there's obviously an applications tab and a licensing tab, so I'm assuming if an application is in the process, it wouldn't appear on the licenses tab, so could it have been that potentially?
I can't answer that, I'm sorry.
Members, any other questions? No? Do you have any questions for Derek?
No, thank you very much.
Do you have any questions for No, no problem at all. Right. It's got a checklist. I'm just making sure I go through it. Perfect. I'm going to pass over to the applicant's case. Ready for you.
Thank you. Just for clarity, I was told off years and years and years ago that if I put 23, 49, 59, the very case that Derek is saying may occur, which is why we always put 24 or 23 or 22 or whatever. And I'm an ex-special, and I was always told it was 24, but if it happened the next day, it was 00 something. Just for my clarity. So, good morning. This is Navanethan Sithamparanathan, but we call him Nava, and he's perfectly happy with that, and I'm perfectly happy with Chris or whatever. This is an application, as you've heard, for a new licence for our client's premises in Albert Road in Southsea, as set out in the very comprehensive licensing report prepared by Mr. Stoney in front of you. As you've heard, the site will be run by a hugely experienced operator, Nava, who has years of small food store operations behind him, and currently has 3 other stores, you've heard, one of which is a 24-hour site, and he came before committee, we can't quite work out when, but it's some 6 or 7 years ago, to get a 24-hour licence, so he has that experience. And the store is to be redeveloped. The hairdressing salon, which has been there for ages, is going to be redeveloped into a convenience store at a cost of plus or minus £75,000. So it's no small effort on behalf of our client. We're seeking to provide the sale of alcohol by retail, as you've heard, during the trading hours of 0600 to midnight, easier way of putting it, Sunday through Thursday, and 0600 to 2300 on Fridays and Saturdays. And we're seeking late night refreshment in the 1 hour between 2300 to midnight on those days where we are open, which is Sunday while Thursdays. And for clarity, we're not a burger bar or a kebab house or anything like that. It is literally that if somebody takes a pasty and puts it in a microwave, that requires that after 11 you have to have, sorry, I'm preaching to the converted, but I'm trying to explain as well. You have to have a late night refreshment or you get prosecuted for not having a premises licence. And equally, even though if it's a vend on a coffee machine where you put the money in, you don't have to have a late night refreshment licence. If it's a vend where you don't put the money in, you do have to have a late night refreshment licence. So all I do is if ever anybody goes past 2300, I go for LNR. But it isn't going to be a kebab house, is it? No, it's not. Well, not now anyway. So, this is in the hours we're applying for is in line with the guidelines in 1015, which I won't quote unless you require that I read them out to you. Everybody else will know them. And also your own policy statement with regard to giving individual consideration to the merits of each application. We've already heard that there's no allegations from any parties that the site of the store is currently a focus of disorder, but there wouldn't be, would there, because it's a hairdresser's. But we would suggest that the issues raised by the varied representations received are concerns about what may happen in the future, whilst there has not been one representation made by any responsible authority, and these are the bodies that we all rely on in matters such as this to support those concerns. And where there were those concerns, you've heard already that they would be here. Having met the police licensing officer, I know he would be here. 911 of the guidelines, again, you know, I assume that you don't need me to read them out, but I'm quite happy to. So I refer to 911, and 912 also, it's extended slightly to what Mr. Stone put in, Derek put in. these are all particularly relevant today as we contacted the licensing officer, who was Ben Lewington in this particular instance, at the Portsmouth Police licensing team before we even were putting the application in, and discussed in detail what we were proposing. When I was first approached, it was on a 24-hour basis. I've traded in this area for a long time. I've run stores in Albert Road, Palmerston Road, Elm Grove, so I know the area personally. Nava knows the area in a more broad sense, and so we immediately agreed that we weren't going to go 24 hours. So then we looked at 6 while 12, so I contacted Ben and we discussed with him about that. He was comfortable with 6 while 12 from Sunday till Thursday, less comfortable because of what's going on in the area on the Friday and the Saturday. So we agreed we would reduce it down to 2,300 on those 2 days. So the whole thing has been done with him. We then put to him the conditions that we were proposing to put onto the operating schedule. He adjusted, tweaked it, it's his wording, just to change the wording to what they like to have, which we don't have a problem with, and that's what you have before you today. So we're now here today to address the concerns of the 5 interested persons, copies of which you've already heard in your bundle, who are seeking to effectively stop the grant of a new licence for the store rather than restrict the hours for the sale of alcohol, which is interesting. Sometimes people come in and say they want to restrict the hours. Actually, all 5 here are saying they don't want the licence. There is a degree of duplication in the representations made, but this should not detract from the fact that each one has been made by an individual and therefore has merit on their own right. But it is important to reiterate at this point that there's no representations from the police nor from any other responsible authority per section 9.15. And again, I'm happy to read it out, but if you're content, I won't. It's quite exciting, but I won't. In the first of the 5 individual reps, we're told by Mrs. Fitzgerald, who isn't here, this is always more difficult, because if people are making representation and they're not here, I then have to make their case for them and then knock it back down again. So with your leave, I'll carry on. And we're told that there's already a drunken crime, verbal and physical abuse in the area, littering and vandalism, and this is having a devastating effect on the road, and goes on to list the other stores in Albert Road selling alcohol, with no evidence adduced against the actual application. Now, we all know that Albert Road's an incredible commercial retail area. It's a long, long road, as you all know. There's lots and lots of businesses there. And it's a very popular area with retailers and customers alike. And as I said, we've liaised with the police to try and make sure that we can be seen to fit in with the existing businesses and the licenses already trading. We're not seeking to extend past what's already there. We're seeking to become part of the module that is the operation, the retail operation within that area. Mr. Merlin Pitt, there are 2 Mr. Pitts, so Mr. Merlin Pitt has formally objected to the application based on 3 of the licensing objectives, not the protecting children from harm one, but the other 3, raising oversaturation and the unnecessary grant of a new licence, which will exacerbate, we're told, existing issues. He then refers to public drunkenness, property damage and shoplifting, suggesting another late-night alcohol retailer will only fuel these problems and increase the risks to residents and local businesses and emergency services. And it's interesting, of course, that the emergency services, who have a good understanding of potential risk, have not made any representation whatsoever. Finally, he raises the matter I've never come across before in my 30 years. I think that Derek Stone's dealt with it, as has your legal representation, raising the issue of transparency, but we've made the application based on what we understand the regulations to require. I've never understood why. I've never come across anybody suggesting that because I'm not on a Google search or Nava's not on a Google search, it's not a meritable application. I'm quite hurt because I'm all over Google. I'm really actually quite hurt, but I'll get over it. Your licensing department have addressed this, as I say, and I'm sure that I can leave this to you to decide how you feel about that. Finally, he suggests that the application does not serve the public interest and actively undermines the licensing objectives. The first point is not a requirement of an application, although I would say that a brand new, well-run convenience food store at a cost of, as we've said, circa 75k does serve the public interest. and our application does not undermine the licensing objective, because if it did, the police et al. Would be making representations against it. Jim Rogers, we're told, has lived in Albert Road for 22 years and suggests the application for a late night licence would increase antisocial behaviour and harassment in an area that is close to a school and theatre. Of course, the school would not be impacted by a late night application, and the application has been crafted with the help of the police to fit into the local trading profile, as I've already said. He also mentions delivery vans and lorries, which isn't necessarily a specific concern of the committee, but any alcohol deliveries would be part of the overall food consignment deliveries. There wouldn't be, it's not like it's a pub with a dray lorry turning up with barrels coming off and everything else. Anything that comes on will be delivered along with food and everything else. So there wouldn't be any extra deliveries. So I can at least assuage his concerns in that regard. Mr. Lawrence Pitt also formally objects, but his representation, you will note, is virtually an exact copy of Mr. Merlin Pitt's, and therefore I consider I've already addressed that, if that's okay with you. Finally, Jennifer Saunders has very kindly agreed to attend. I'm sure she won't mind if I say that her representation is broadly, again, the same as Mr. Rogers, and I consider I have addressed it. I will address it in more detail if it's required, but it kind of reads the same as far as I'm concerned. No evidence against this application is adduced, as there is none, and if there were, the police and your own council officers would take a strong interest in the application, and they're happy for it to proceed as applied for. And there's no representation that supports the concerns raised from the responsible authorities who are charged with addressing these very concerns. There's no evidence adduced or referred to support the view that antisocial behaviour, etc., will occur with the sale of alcohol and late night refreshment, and none of the responsible authorities have made reps or sought to make changes to the hours even. And so therefore, I would leave it as that. Need is not part of the licensing process anymore, as we already know, and the fact that we are applying to sell alcohol on LNR simply does not follow that the fears and concerns raised would automatically occur. And if anything does start to emerge, it will be dealt with swiftly and efficiently by the applicants, if not by the authorities. This is a community food store. We depend on local business as much as we depend on any passing trade. And it's no good for us if the business doesn't trade properly and within law, and we will not tolerate the sort of issues that are the concerns of some of the interested parties. And as you've heard, the applicant is well versed in dealing with different issues and already has a 24-hour store. The guidelines are clear that representations made, if they are to be supported, must show a causal link to the application sought and be supported where possible by evidence. And there is no causal link, nor importantly any evidence adduced by any party, and there is no support from responsible authorities. We are quoted 9.12 in your bundle, but the very last paragraph is interesting, or last sentence even, and I will read that out if I may. And it says, however, it remains incumbent on all responsible authorities to ensure that their representations can withstand the scrutiny to which they would be subject to at a hearing. And we would dare to take the view that the same has to be supported by representations. The Act and the guidance are clear that the applicant has a responsibility only to sell alcohol to people of age and who are not drunk, and those purchasing for people under age or under the influence of drink or drugs. But equally, the Act and the guidance are clear that the applicant cannot be held responsible for the actions of customers when they have left the premises. That's not a get out. There are responsibilities, and we will address the responsibilities that are ours. We're fully aware of our social responsibilities and your policy, as well as the guidelines, and will strive to ensure that any issues that we may have influence over are addressed. And this will specifically include, for example, the provision of notices requesting that customers leave the premises as quietly as possible. Also, whilst these matters have not been raised by way of representation, all of the staff are individually trained in the sale of alcohol and have to take a written or computerised test to prove their understanding of the responsibility placed on them when authorised to sell alcohol. This authority is in writing or computerised per guidelines, and subsequently at no more than 6 monthly intervals, staff are retrained, retested, and then signed off again, either in writing or on computer. with a new authorisation to sell. A refusals log is maintained at the site and challenge 25 is enforced. And I've lost the last page, sorry. There it is. And there's also an incident log that's embraced at the store and that's signed off as well. We'll also benefit from a very comprehensive CCTV system, which goes far further than any conditions that are required by the police or anybody else. Nobody is alleging poor operation at the premises at the moment, or that we will be doing anything wrong, or that there are issues there, and no conditions have been sought by any of the responsible authorities to boost up the operating schedule that's already before you. It is a fear of what may happen, not supported by any evidence, per the requirement of standing up to scrutiny at a hearing, and more importantly, that those fears are relevant to the application in the first place. It is my view that the Licensing Act is a flawed device in many ways, but it is what it is, and it's what we have to deal with. And the case of Thwaites at paragraphs 55 and 63 is also extremely relevant. I'm not springing that on you, I have already notified of that one. And we must deal with this matter based not on what we know, feel, or even want to do, but rather with exactly what is before us today, an application for the sale of alcohol and late night refreshment in line with the guidelines, with no evidence against that application, as there is none, for the hours sought, arrived at in negotiation with the police licensing officer. And that's the application. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Members?
Thank you, Chair. So just to clarify, because as I say, that was going to be one of my questions, but I think you explained it well enough. But just to re-clarify, the Friday and Saturday opening hours was a discussion you had with the police prior to submitting your application and agreed to keep it at 11 o'clock, because it is often strange that you open shorter hours on a week. I've never heard it actually before, but you open shorter hours on a Friday and Saturday. I'm assuming that was something you negotiated with the police in advance.
Yes, your policy and all the guidelines suggest that one would contact the responsible authorities and deal with that first, and that's the policy that we have as a licensing practitioners. And actually, I deal with Portsmouth all the time because I do all the licensing for Appleby Westwood and companies like that. And the guys at Pompey are great, and you can just talk to them normally and get proper sense out of everybody, and we just talk about it, kick the ball around for a bit, and then finish up with what we agree. So yes, absolutely. And I've never done it like that before either.
So just to confirm, so the shop will be closing at 11, is that correct? So it'll be closing, not just the retail sale of alcohol or late night refreshments, the whole store will be closing, will it?
Yes, we've fully embraced what Ben was talking about, that there are issues in the area after 11, and therefore we've decided to close the store at 11, not sell alcohol. And actually, if you look, we actually put it down as the opening hours of the premises as well as the hours to sell alcohol. So we are committed to closing at 11.
Okay, that's good. And just to reassure you, I googled you very quickly, and you are there. So I googled you very quickly, and you are there. So you are there. Don't worry, sir. It's all good. Good. So I didn't want you to feel hurt, but no, I found you. I don't have any further questions here. Although I will make a point of note that next week, if you've seen our licensing agenda, Albert Road is coming up into question to potentially look at a community impact area. You've probably seen. So it might be worth looking at the documentations for that next week, because that'll be interesting. But no further questions, Chair. Thank you.
I'm just curious, is it common for people to buy alcohol at 7 a.m? Because a lot of these deputations don't mention the time it's closing, they all mention when it opens, as you've got 3. I'm just curious, is that a common thing?
I can speak from personal experience on that because I have a store in Kingsclear in North Hampshire. We won the best store in Berkshire, by the way, so we took the award and ran because the store's in North Hampshire, and our licence is 5:30 and we sell alcohol from 5:30. So it is, we don't have to worry about itinerants in North Hampshire. Usually itinerants are later than that anyway. It's normally people who are going places or buying it for business or have just finished shift. Where you have a heavy commercial area and you open the store at 6, they're picking up breakfast to go home because it's their evening meal or whatever, and they might want to drink before they go to bed. It's bizarre, but it happens.
And then my only other question is, shoplifting was mentioned, and you did say there was a lot of money being spent on the premises. Is there any measures in place to assist that apart from CCTV? Is there anything else?
The CCTV system that Navra and I have been discussing this morning is arguably one of the most comprehensive that I've come across, and I've been in this game for a long time. And it's going to have, it'll identify individuals. So if, for example, somebody is caught shoplifting, their image will be then remembered by the computer system, I think I'm right. And then the next time that they come in, it'll be flagged up immediately they come in, because there'll be head and shoulders cameras on the door, and so that will help that. And there are ways and means of reducing shoplifting, and they'll all be dealt with on that basis.
Perfect. Thank you, members. Any other questions?
No, you asked them one.
Very good, yeah. Do you have any questions? No? Okay. Right, I know you've just finished speaking, but you're about to sum up now. No, she doesn't. Perfect. I'll get you to sum up then. She doesn't. I did ask. She doesn't.
So, as I've said, the Act is clear that we must be guided by the police and your officers, but the decision per the guidelines should be that we're guided by your officers. It is evidence-based, and so by default, we would say the same holds good with others making representation. No evidence has been adduced whatsoever.
I was supposed to ask Derek to sum up first, I've just realised.
Oh, okay.
I'll give you a couple of seconds break.
It will be a couple of seconds as well. I've nothing further to add. Thank you.
Now it's back to you. It's thrown me off with the other persons.
See, that's not fair. I was getting ready for arrest. Right, so the Act is clear, as we've said, that we must be guided by the police and your officers, but the decision per the guidelines should be that we're guided by your officers, it's evidence-based, and so by default, with others making representation. No evidence has been adduced whatsoever or alluded to against the application per 9.12 by any party, and none of the fears and concerns raised are supported by your responsible authorities in any way as part of this process. As I've said, in my view, the Licensing Act is a flawed device in many ways. I love it, but it's still flawed. And the case of Thwaites indicates, paragraphs 55 and 63, that we must deal with this matter based not on what we know, feel, or even want to do, but rather based on exactly what is before us today. An application for the sale of alcohol and late-night refreshment in line with your own policy and the guidelines, with no evidence against the application, as there is none, for the hours sought. We would ask that the application for the licence be granted, as applied for, and should any difficulties actually arise, it would be by way of review that they are dealt with in the future, rather than the licence being limited now on the basis of what may happen in the future or concerns raised not for this committee. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So we are going to move into closed session, but Tracy, how long do you think? Reckon half an hour?
Doesn't say about
Yeah.
half an hour, 30 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, so you can be rest assured we won't come back before 12. So you can come back, go have a coffee, and then, yeah, if you're hanging around, we'll come and grab you. If you see us, we're not ignoring you, we're not allowed to talk to you. All right, perfect, we'll move into closed session. Thank you.